Welcome to Right Way Politics. We do politics the right way, the winning way, and we leave the left way behind. Brian Kirwin, your host here, noted Virginia political consultant and Republican extraordinaire. And it's one of those weeks where politics is on everybody's lips, mainly because of the big State of the Union address by Sleepy Joe Biden, President of the United States, keeping us up a little past his normal bedtime to give a big giant speech to a joint session of Congress, and had a few points, and it wasn't, to be honest with you, I don't want to get so hyper-partisan, it wasn't the worst speech I've ever heard. It was actually pretty bipartisan in parts. He tried to bridge the gap with his new Republican majority in Congress in a few ways, and he seemed... The back half of the speech was his laundry list of things that are never going to happen, but there were some points where I thought, this is something unique. This is something I didn't expect. I got 4 specific spots in this speech that I want to highlight that I really didn't expect going in, and 2 of them were off script. Joe Biden going off script is usually exactly what we all wait for. It's exactly what we all wish for. The first one happened during introductions. He must have felt pretty confident because, of course, the media and yours truly got an advance copy of the speech, so he knew what he was supposed to say. The State of the Union isn't the biggest event of this period of time. No, we're all looking forward to the Super Bowl, where my Philadelphia Eagles take on the Kansas City Chiefs, and the president tried to make reference to this event. He just didn't remember what it was called. He just stuttered and stammered, and after a pause, well, listen to this.
By the way, Chief Justice, I may need a court order. She gets to go to the game tomorrow, next week. I have to stay home.
Not much of a laugh, kind of a, doesn't he know what the Super Bowl is? Even the Democrats were uncomfortable. He didn't even remember the name of the biggest athletic event in the country, the Super Bowl, not the game that's tomorrow or next week or sometime. Sorry, Joe. National TV, first couple minutes of your speech, the part of the speech that everybody's watching until they tune out because it's boring, and you can't even remember the name Super Bowl. Kind of sad. Actually, the most interesting part of the speech was the part of the speech that was basically, I think he plagiarized. Did Sleepy Joe plagiarize a Trump speech? Because listen to this.
For decades, the middle class has been hollowed out in more than, and not no one administration, but for a long time. Too many good-paying manufacturing jobs move overseas. Factories closed down. Once thriving cities and towns that many of you represent became shadows of what they used to be. Along the way, something else we lost: pride, our sense of self-worth.
Joe Biden is famous for giving other people speeches, but that sounds word for word like a Trump speech. Fighting for the middle class, fighting to bring back manufacturing. He even had a part of the speech later on where he's buy American, buy American, buy American, and he's talking about the hollowed out cities in the Rust Belt that were responsible for Hillary Clinton's loss. Well, Joe, all these hollowed out cities, all these manufacturing jobs that were lost, you lost them. It's your fault. The State of the Union was full of things of you fixing problems you created. I swear you, if you took this word for word and put it in a Trump State of the Union, none of the Democrats would cheer for it. But now they're all standing up because Joe Biden is saying it. But this was a Trump segment of the speech, and somebody in the Biden White House found an old copy, maybe a few torn pages from Nancy Pelosi's desk, and put those paragraphs in to this speech. It's pretty funny. When Sleepy Joe went kind of off script again, he gave a nice little talk about the oil industry, and he castigated the oil industry for not investing enough in new refineries and new equipment and new domestic energy production. And then he went off script, talked about oil production, but then he started telling his own personal story. Listen to this.
They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells, all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade, and that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it.
Once again, Joe, you are the problem. If you look at the actual text of the State of the Union, he was supposed to say exactly what he was talking about domestic production. They invested too little of that profit. Instead, they used those record profits to buy back their own stock. That was where it's supposed to go. But instead, Joe said, well, he talked to some of these CEOs and they said, well, we're afraid you're going to shut everything down. And he says, shut everything down? We're going to need oil for the next decade. And everyone laughs. You don't get the return on your investment within 10 years. Heck, it'll take 2 or 3 years to get permitted and built in the first place. You're 3 years into that decade. Nobody's going to build a new refinery or new domestic oil production if they're going to have to get it shut down 7 years after they start operations. That's insane. Does he not understand how business works? I guess he doesn't. He's been in government his entire life. But Sleepy Joe slipped up and told the truth. When you tell oil producers, you're good for the next 10 years, and then we're shutting you down. What, are you kidding me? They're not going to invest a penny. Then came the part of the speech where he was going to slam the Republicans on what they always slam Republicans on: Social Security and Medicare. He had pages and pages. This was his get tough part of the speech. This is when he was going to hammer, literally for a page and a half, it's in the text, a page and a half, beating up the Republicans on proposing to end Social Security and Medicare within 5 years. Total BS. Everybody knows it. And the Republicans smartly cut him off at the pass, and listen to what happened.
Some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks,
if you're watching the video, you could see him just turn the pages and try to find a part of the speech to pick up on, because all of his attacks against the Republicans on Social Security and Medicare are pointless. And he tried to kind of get back and start saying his stuff after Republicans said, we're not ending Social Security and we're not ending Medicare. Joe had to punt. He had to get out of there. But all in all, it was an interesting State of the Union. I just wanted to chime in with a couple of remarks and comments. By and large, I think it was a bit of an outreach to the new Republican majority in Congress. There's some parts where he actually said, look, we worked together when you were in the minority. Now that you're in the majority of the House, there's no reason we can't work together again. Not bad for a handshake, and the polls showed that people actually appreciated a president and a Congress that can work together on things. Unfortunately, as usual, Democrats define bipartisanship as Republicans agreeing to do what Democrats want. It never works the other way around, but he spent the entire last year, MAGA this, MAGA that, all attacking Republicans and basically saying Republicans are like the evilest things on the planet, and now he wants to work with them. So, whatever. So I think it was a nice effort on his part. It was well delivered. Some of the parts of this speech were supposed to be more confrontational, and it just didn't work. Republicans weren't going to put up with it. They weren't going to be castigated. They weren't going to be lied about. And they stood up, and a couple Democrats complained that, ooh, how disrespectful that they didn't let Joe Biden insult them to their faces. I don't think that played at all. And Joe saw the moment and realized that he had a text in front of him that wasn't working, and he ditched it and skipped ahead in the speech and made the most of it. But so I don't think it was too bad of an effort on his part. I just think he got defanged in the beginning by not remembering what the name of the Super Bowl is. And when he tried to make it confrontational about Social Security and Medicare, Republicans defanged him. I think everybody came out looking nice. I think the Republicans had a chance to stand up for themselves. I think Joe Biden flubbed a few times, and he was Joe, but he didn't totally mess up the speech. He delivered it okay. And everybody basically came out with a little bit of bipartisan unity about things to work together, and all the laundry list of super kooky ideas that nobody ever really believes are going to happen were shoved to the back of the speech, where most people weren't watching or paying attention. And to be honest with you, Joe was rushing through that part just to get it done. If I had to grade it, I think Joe gave a C+ speech, maybe a B-. He delivered it okay. His ad libs hurt him more than anything. If he could have stuck to the script, he would have done better, but he tried to kind of personalize it and make it his own thing, and it's not his thing. The one ad lib that did work for him is when he cut some of the attacks that weren't working and realized he had to shift gears. He was able to do that, and that was pretty deft, but the viewing audience at home has no idea, unless they're sitting there following the script like I was. They knew what Joe was really doing, and he decided to punt on 3rd down on Social Security. Probably a smart thing for him to do, and they came out with a message of unity, which on Social Security is exactly what the Republicans would want. So that's Right Way Politics. I'm Brian Kirwin, chiming in on the State of the Union, and we'll see you next time on Right Way Politics.